Hi, everyone. This is Jackson Steger, and you're listening to Campfire, a limited series podcast from Cabin. Campfire is a show that seeks to understand how decentralized organizations achieve wildly ambitious and creative goals. Each week, we are joined by DAO leaders and operators who share the tips, tricks, and tactics that they have used to build community and ship product. Today's guests are Juliet and Loni, the engineering and content leads from Surge Women. Surge is a female-led organization focused on educating and securing women's place in Web3. Our conversation in this episode is about the challenges that women face in Web3 and tech more broadly, as well as the verticalized approach that Surge is taking to onboard and empower more women in the space, a obvious and well-documented need. Of particular note is the Surge NFT Passport, which is a cornerstone project for the Surge community, available for minting this month. This is definitely one of the highest utility NFT projects that I've come across in my young Web3 career. I can't wait for it to launch. I can't wait for more women to enter the space, and I can't wait to watch this community surge. I hope this episode is helpful for DAO leaders trying to learn how they can be more intentional about creating pathways for women to join their communities. I learned a lot, and I hope to keep learning from awesome people like Juliet and Loni. They were awesome. The conversation was really fun, and what they're building is really necessary in this space. Enjoy the episode, and definitely reach out to Juliet and Loni on Twitter. You can find Juliet at _Juliet Tech, and you can find Loni at Loni Lush. Surge is also on Twitter. You can find them at Surge_Women. Thanks so much, and enjoy the episode. Juliet and Loni, welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us in.
Thanks. It's exciting.
Hell yeah. Glad to have you here, and we're going to get right into it. What are some challenges within Web3 and maybe tech more broadly that are unique to women, or at least more prevalent for folks who identify as women?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to ask. I can tell you a bit of a personal anecdote. So I'm a software engineer, and I've worked in a variety of different organizations, most of which I have been the only female in the team. And what happens with Web3 specifically is that it's really that combination of two spaces, finance and technology. And these are two spaces that have been traditionally very male dominated. And so that brings a legacy of history on those fronts. And besides just the classic general women and gender disparities that exist in terms of salaries and higher positions, we see at a technical level in numbers that only 5% of leadership roles within the crypto space are held by women. It's harder to get into the space for women, even in the beginning, because a lot of people are coming into crypto mostly from a side hustle angle. And women are twice as likely to be working in house chores, cooking, cleaning, driving kids to extracurriculars. And so unless they have a full-time role, it becomes really hard for them to dive into the rabbit hole and really the depth of knowledge that it takes to come into such a complex space. And so it becomes a point where as this space grows, we're just seeing project after project building amazing things. And then when you look at who's building them, it's mostly guys. And so that builds a space that's not necessarily as inviting to women, and that even when we're there, we have to really bring out this assertive sort of energy, our male side. Women, I think, have, and men as well, we both have these two energies always within us. And so that nurturing, motherly care is often a side of us that we have to take down so that we can thrive through these male-dominated space. And of course, it hurts the entire ecosystem as a whole that some of us are having to bring that energy up and down.
Sure. Anything you want to add, Loni?
Yeah, fully agreed. But also what Juliet said about having this more male masculine energy in the space, I think this is why it's so important to have female-led or female-dominant communities where you can maybe, discuss your nail art or just talk about the plants or whatever. And this is the kind of space where women can feel like, in addition to crypto, there's something to discuss. There's something fun going on that's maybe not just, sports. I don't know what people are into these days. This is stereotype. But yeah.
I'm going to come back to a lot of what both of you just said, but before I do that, would love first to just hear in your own words, what is Surge, and also what are each of your respective roles for Surge? And maybe Juliet, you want to start?
Yeah, awesome. So at Surge, we have this North Star of making sure we're onboarding and securing women's space within Web3. And really what that means is that we're looking at a verticalized front of how women are coming into the space. At a first level, we have education, and this hits through articles that are amazing content. Lead Loni was working with our decentralized team of writers, as well as interactive quizzes, synchronous events, Twitter spaces, the whole shebang. Then once they're coming to the space, maybe they read the articles or listening to some stuff, but they still have some questions particular to their background or their interests or what they're building. So on that end, we have a Discord community with almost 8,000, mostly women identifying people who are coming in with questions and providing answers to each other to have that real-time support. Then on that end, they've asked their hard questions, they want to make the leap into to get a full-time role in this space. And so on that front, we have a jobs board that's connecting some vetted talent to top organizations within the space to make sure that we're including more women within the conversation. And then after that, you're already in this phase, you already are working out your stuff, and you want to make sure that you're making the most out of your Web3 experience. And so for that, we're launching the Surge Passport NFT, which is meant to be like a booster within the space. So you're getting scholarships, you're getting mentorships, you're getting discounts, you're getting free courses, subscriptions. And so we're building this repertoire of perks from top organizations so that people coming in to have like a kick advantage as they're diving through all these different experiences.
I love that. And your role, Juliet?
So I'm a co-founder as well as engineering lead. So my main task is, as well as maintaining our current website and design structure, I'm also in charge of building the NFT smart contracts, working on the minting site, automating flows within our team process, anything taking out Discord, spam bots, so anything that really dives into the technical weeds of what we're building.
Awesome. And Loni, Juliet implied there that you're the content lead, so would love to hear a little bit about how you think about some of this educational content, how you choose it, how you source topics, how you select specific pieces and find writers or creators for those pieces, and what the larger editorial strategy is that you have. It's a lot to unpack, so take it in whatever order you'd wish.
Yeah, it's a mix. I would say my work experience has previously been in mostly Web2 organizations. So there's a particular structure there of how you work on content. And it's something that's been ingrained in me. But starting to work with Surge, I've learned to decentralize and to also let go of the sort of control that you want to have as a lead in any team. And what we do is a mix of our editorial strategy, which we're developing basically all together. We are in the core team always brainstorming and trying to find topics that are right now beginner levels. So most of our content for now is to get people introduced to what is Ethereum, what is Bitcoin, what are gas prices, what are NFTs. This is the kind of stuff we want to cover, and we want to cover it in a way that you can't avoid the technical stuff. It's important to understand, but we definitely want to avoid jargon. We want people who read that to come out with a holistic picture of the topic and to be able to relate what they read to their already existing experiences, so that when they come out of there, they can go on and research more and not feel defeated and be like, okay, whatever, I'm not, I don't want to know anymore. So this is our strategy for now. We've been, in terms of topics, we're keeping our ear to the ground. A lot of our topics come from the community. We sometimes do surveys in our newsletter where we ask people what their struggles are, what they want to know about. Then we start from there. Some topics are just basics that come as no-brainers, things that we want to cover. And then also a lot of the ideas come from the writers. because the way we work, we started out with me and two other amazing contributors, and now we're expanding our team. So it's a mix of traditional hiring, still focused on women, but also just talking to people in the community who say, like yesterday, one of our ambassadors, she's deep into decentralized science, and I can help out on an article. We can do an intro piece. So then we take it from there and start developing. And this is how a lot of our contributors just come through the Discord, show interest in writing in different topics that they're passionate about. And usually these topics are something we wanted to cover anyways, or it's something that never occurred to us. So then we can roll with that and give an overview of a lot of topics to our readers, but also give a lot of freedom and creativity to the writer.
Awesome, Loni. Appreciate that answer. I am curious to double click on some of the other pieces of that verticalized process of getting women into Web3 that you mentioned at the top, Juliet. And Loni referenced all the educational materials. You mentioned real-time support. And I'm curious how this actually manifests in Discord. Like, what does this look like in terms of how you've structured Discord channels and who you have providing support and how you're providing support? Are you providing 24/7 support? Are you providing certain times of days, like maybe an office hour model? Curious to talk a little bit about that. And also, are there plans to move off Discord ever or have something like in real life? Where are your thoughts on providing support?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say we have a pretty flexible model at the moment. I think one of at least my biggest realizations and surprises coming into the space and building Surge was that there was a lot of people who knew a lot about the space who were just open to supporting the mission, because if you've been in it for so long, you know how hard it is to find women who are contributing and hanging out. And so what we've done is a lot of connection making. I would say it's a lot of matchmaking. So potentially, I'm not a tokenomics expert, but I know this one girl who introduced herself like a week back knows it. And so just by tagging them and making sure we're connecting people with the right collaborators and with the right knowledge experts, that's been super fruitful in creating a community and also supporting people in the best way. We also, going back to what Loni was saying earlier, we also grab a lot of the questions that we keep hearing from our Discord and make sure that they're addressed either through our Twitter spaces and through the Discord hangouts that we're producing, as well as in the content itself. So it's really important for us that we're listening back to what people are proposing, because at the end of the day, like, once you dive in deep into the rabbit hole, it's hard to know what things are more relevant or harder to understand. And that's definitely something that we try to respond back to.
Yeah, that's a super fair point. I find Gabby Goldberg, who is a great writer in the space, she writes about how we're all living in a curator economy now, and that the creator economy is so last year. And so to that end, like it seems that you're doing a great job being intentional about that curation. Cool. The next piece of that verticalized process was jobs. And you all have this awesome job board. I was picking through it before we started recording it. And are there any criteria that you have for prospective partners that want to post on this job board? The idea that the job board is vetted, what does that vetting process look like?
So really what we're trying to do is grabbing these organizations that are looking for more female talent to come into the space and give them a centralized space for them to provide their listings, and then pairing that up with our vetted talent that we're seeing from our community so that we can connect them. So we do that in a few ways. Number one is making sure that the women that are coming into our jobs board talent pool are very similar to the listings that these organizations are posting. So, for example, we don't currently have a health tech organization, ergo we don't have nurses in our talent pool. And so making sure that those combinations are pairing up, as well as contacting some of the women that we see in our community who are very active in one topic or another that we think would be good for an organization. And then to the organization's end, we send them an email every X amount of time with the people that we see could be a good fit. And so that way we're providing value for both ends of the spectrum.
Love it. Similarly, you talk about Perk, and there's this passport product that I'm really excited to hear more about that is launching soon, and to learn a little bit more about the utility that these passports will provide and how that might differ from other NFT projects. Then also the why. So what is the reason for launching a passport product? What will the potential funding from that passport product go to? And do you have any specific artwork in mind, any alpha you can leak there that is interesting for the audience?
So the idea for the passport is really said to provide people coming into space with sort of a golden ticket to Web3. Build back on that curation. We are handpicking our partners. We're making sure that they are mission aligned and working with them to figure out what sort of perks would be a good fit both for people coming into the space and for people who have already been here a while. And I think an interesting, I would say, a fun thing we're doing with the passport is releasing these perks in seasons. So this is something that we built in to provide long-term value to holders, where right now we're announcing the perks for season 1. And as the passport grows and as Surge grows, we're going to start offering more perks in other seasons. And this will all be built on the feedback we get in the community, right? So maybe one of the perks is not interesting to people, and then some are super interesting. So then we'll go into that direction. This is something that I think can be really awesome for people who do get the passport, because this is basically a thing you can use if you need to do your crypto taxes. You can use your passport. If you need to learn something, get a scholarship, you can do that. There's a bunch of different options there. And so far we announced a couple of perks. One of them is the crypto tax I mentioned. So our holders will get a discount for an annual subscription to the crypto tax calculator, but also they'll be getting from your Juno app 3 months free from their basically app, which is a Duolingo-based app for learning about personal finance. We'll also hold office hours with financial advisors. So it all comes down to supporting women identifying people in financial empowerment and in learning. This is our main motivation with the passport.
Yeah, and I can step it in a bit for the art. Yeah, so we're super excited. We found this young college student artist who had never published anything like this before. And we saw her art and we were like, this is our girl. So we were able to talk to her, and the art that she's providing I find fascinating because it's hand-drawn. And then we've added on top of that the custom auto-generated algorithm. So she draws the art by hand, she puts that into layers, and then our engineering team has created an algorithm that, based on the rules that she provided, auto-generates 5,000 of these. So we've already sent out some sneak peeks. If you go into our Twitter, you'll be able to see them, but it's come super nicely and it's definitely even better than we were expecting. So we're very excited about that.
That's so cool. I've been curious, just on more of a personal side, how that customization piece can be built with hand-drawn artwork. So maybe one day there will be a Surge content how-to piece to replicate that process. That's awesome. On some of these perks, things like subscription discount or pre-sale access, are these perks only meant for women? And if so, how do you ensure that the minting of the passports can be reserved for women?
Yeah, that's a great question. We broke our heads trying to solve it. And then we said, you know what? It's not only for women, but what we will do is that we'll tailor our branding for female individuals or non-binary. We're also making sure that the pre-sale partnerships that we're doing for our pre-sale list are with other female-led communities so that we can guarantee that most of the people who will be buying it, and we've discussed this with several other NFT projects, where usually it's 70 to 80% of the people within the pre-sale list who fill out your entire minting portfolio. So we're very excited about that. The survey that we've been running out for a pre-sale list is currently at an 85% female rate, which is amazing. So just making sure that of course, men can buy them and they can get great discounts, but we are targeting sort of a female population. And then another layer that goes on top of that is that some of our partners have said, this is great. We don't have anything, of course, against men, but we do want to like support women coming into the space. And so they're providing sort of their own filters. Say, for example, an organization giving a free scholarship for 100 women to take their educational course, they'll say, all right, they have to go through a vetting like application process, and we want this to be for women. And so that's a space where they're putting up their filter for it. But from our end, we're allowing essentially anyone to go through the perk. So there's some things there, but at the end of the day, to be completely frank, men buying them will also have amazing perks. And I think this is part of the point. At the end, the whole WAGME culture, we all are going to make it. We all have to support each other grow. And this is just another way to boost women's immersiveness within Web3.
Great. I love that. I want to talk a little bit more about what happens after the Passport launches. And I'm curious to know, I believe your plan is to launch in April, which is likely when this episode will drop. Given that listeners tuning in might even be able to go buy one now, depending on the timing, what is the funding going to support Surge to do? What is the near-term roadmap looking at the next year or so?
So definitely number one, like our key focus right now is making sure that this NFT launch is a success and locking in the best partnerships that we can, ensuring our contracts are secure and going through the whole, also providing amazing content out there. So we have a lot on our hands currently to grasp, which has meant that like our next round after the NFT drop is looking a lot like the seasons that Loni mentioned, where we're focusing a lot on keeping to provide that value to the organization, as well as implementing even more education initiatives. We have a lot of things in our mind, a lot of IRL events and partnerships with other female-led organizations. I think something that we've found is that we really are mission aligned and just despairing here and there on what niche area within the space we're focusing on. And so the more that we can tap into each other's reach, it just means we're widening the objective that we have in mind. So there's a lot of that on the work. And then we also have another sort of space that we're still playing with of a rough draft of a cool software product that could come to support women's evolution within the crypto arena. But I'll leave that a bit more mysterious because we're still crystallizing that vision.
Gotcha. Cool. I want to shift away from specific tactical things for a minute and get a little bit more philosophical. So Web3 optimists, I think about writers like Packy McCormick, for example, or Chris Dixon, or just other thought leaders in the general Web3 space. They paint this optimistic picture of this emerging sector that offers people, not just women, but people, the ability to democratize useful technology and give ownership to folks who own the networks that they're a part of. It's still early days for Surge. It's early days for Web3. But what's the most optimistic vision for how Web3 can help women close the pay gap and other gender inequities in tech? And how do we build the space so that everything goes right?
Yeah, so I agree that a lot of the messaging is optimistic, and I think that is great. When you get into crypto, you either get in because you want gigantic gains or you find the philosophy behind it appealing. And for me, it's definitely the access. What I like about Web3 is that the rules are the same for anyone, anywhere in the world. If you don't come from a developed country in the first world, whatever, then you know very well that you are gatekept out of a lot of financial and otherwise opportunities. So this is what's most exciting to me. And I think this applies to everyone, but women especially, right? Because a lot of the stuff in the world is in some ways, it's been changing in recent times, but in some ways it's still, I don't want to say stacked up against women, but not necessarily welcoming. So what I like about Web3 is that the access is there. You can tap into the space. There's nothing preventing you. But the pain area we're focusing on is making it easy and comfortable and intuitive, basically, to get into Web3. Because a lot of women feel intimidated by the language, by the scams, by the overwhelming amount of everything that's in there. And if you take time to talk with everyone, to explain a little bit, to come to some common ground where you can really explain that this is not all about JPEGs. The JPEGs are great, the art is awesome, but really it's about learning new things, taking on different responsibilities, and also thinking about the new different social models that we could be building. And I think it's super important that women have a voice in that because, like you said, it's still super early and the stuff we build together, it's gonna stick around for a while. The first thing you build is hard to shake off later. So it's super important that right now, as bread is baking, whatever, that right now women have a say in that and they can bring their unique talents and skills and contribute.
Yeah, I love that.
Juliet, do you have anything to add?
I just like to add a bit of the ownership front because I think what's really changing, especially as DAOs are gaining more maturity, is that the people who are participating in these DAOs are also the contributors, who are also the consumers of the products, who are also the investors. And so that means that for the first time in an economic model in history, incentives are more aligned than ever. And that really, because Loni was saying the access is open for everyone to own, then that means that if we change the incentives, we're also changing the outputs. And that's, I think, a super powerful train of thought to go down through, especially as we think of more women coming into the space. And studies, a lot of them show how financial or like women financial empowerment can really drive investment in public goods, land equity, improve the welfare of their families, especially children's education. And so it really has an impact, a very tangible impact to the generations that we're building by providing that ownership to a wider range of population.
Awesome. Great answer. I think this is the most important question I had coming in, the one I am most anxious to get your actionable tips on. There are so many other DAOs emerging in the space or decentralized communities, not all of them, including yourselves, necessarily identify as DAOs yet. For leaders of these decentralized communities, how can we be more intentional about creating pathways for women to join? What can every DAO do to better include women?
That's a great question, and one that we definitely at Surge are thinking over and over again to make sure we're providing that thought leadership for sure. I have a few key points. One of them is what we were mentioning earlier. Women are just less likely to have side hustle because they're twice as likely to be working in house chores than their partners are. And so that just means that by providing more full-time roles, you're really allowing women to come faster into the space. So that's a pretty big one. And then when you're actually recruiting, and I've recruited within the space and I've recruited technical roles, so I understand the pain of only coming in men applications. I think that's fine and we should be hiring the best talent. But I also think that keeping a diversity filter in mind supports hiring the best talent and valuing what a diverse team provides to the output of what you're building. And so if we're building a tool, for example, that is used by females as well as by men, but our entire team is men, then as an engineer, you are making micro decisions that we can't even tangibly understand about the impact that they're having. And so definitely keeping that diversity filter when recruiting and prioritizing it, I think is a super important point to address. The other one is mentorships. So as an engineer, within my experience, I saw this a lot where if I am the only woman in this space, it doesn't matter how empowered and cool I think I am going to feel like I don't quite belong, like I'm not like the rest of my teammates. These are things that are very socially ingrained within humans. And so providing that mentorship and that like active support, being proactive about making people feel inclusive and using inclusive language within organizations, spotting it out in a friendly way. But that comment was out of place. And saying it in a one-on-one, it doesn't need to be shamed across, but making sure to keep that culture even within organizations and empower women to speak up. I often saw that I was speaking with a lot of, I think we should do this, or I don't know, but, and that kind of language means that we are not taking as seriously as the guys who may be like shouting and saying, this is how things should be done. And so it's also a matter of us being more assertive, but ideally having that support of someone like reminding us to speak up and giving us the space, as well as, and this is my last take, is the user research interviews. So as we're building products or protocols or platforms, the interviews that we do are the food that we eat to build the best products. And so being mindful of diversity, being mindful of geographical background, being mindful of age, and just these whole sort of diversity factors really can pursue a product that is more holistic and that can impact better the population that it's trying to address.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up age. How do you, maybe relating back to that, both the education piece and also the support piece, how is the experience in Surge or just broadly supporting women in DAO spaces? How is it different, for example, my 23-year-old sister versus my 57-year-old mother who definitely doesn't know what Discord is?
So we have actually among our contributors older women who have been there since the 90s watching the internet grow. And this has been a super awesome experience selfishly for me to work with this wider range of people, because I think it's super fun. Like, some of our writers are from Nigeria. They tell me stories of how crypto is used there to empower the population. Then later in the day, I meet with someone who's been working in the .com bubble, and then they have unique insights. So I think age is something that can be seen, I think, in the way people speak, like the jargon and the way the online culture works, the way we use our language. And then people who are younger or older, they come in and they seem a bit out of place in that. But I think this is something that we all need to consciously decide, that being cool is not about the way you speak, but about the experience and the insights you can bring to the table. And I think in that way, anyone of any age can really contribute. About your mother. So this is my experience is mainly with contributors. So these are people who already feel like they know a thing or two. But even in our Discord, I was chatting the other day with, I think, an older lady. We were speaking in my mother tongue, and she was using the formal form the royal we to address me. It was super funny, but also interesting to see and to hear her questions. So I think that's a huge opportunity for the core team, for contributors, when you speak to people of different backgrounds and ages, to really listen about their questions, because this is the kind of stuff you can't see, because you're constantly talking to your friends, people with similar experiences in the space, and then someone will come in, ask a question, and you're like, never thought of this. And this is, I think, super valuable, just making sure you stay open to different things for your sake, for the sake of the organization, and also for the sake of all the people who come in and who should get this support and open mind when being spoken to.
I've noticed that there's a lot of content in Surge's community in Spanish, which I love. I grew up in Latin America, and I think it's awesome that we're creating pathways that are intentional for folks who speak a language besides English. Can you talk a little bit about the why and the how that this came about?
Yeah, sure. So I'm personally from Panama, and I met Denise on an online cohort fellowship. And we start chatting, we have a great conversation. All of a sudden she reveals she's from Peru. And I'm like, oh, fascinating. So life goes on, we build Surge. And the first few weeks, I think it was even the first week, we started realizing there was a big influx of Spanish speaking people coming into our Discord. And so we said, you know what? Let's just build a Spanish channel. There really isn't that much content about crypto in Spanish. I noticed that when I'm trying to send my friends articles and stuff, and there's just not really that much out there. So let's just start by building this. And at that point, we started doing meetup here and there. We started just speaking in Spanish about the same topics, understanding more the different cultures that are arising in different countries within Latin America, more specifically. And one day, a volunteer comes in and she's, I really value this. There's not enough content in Spanish. I just translated this. Here's the gift. Out of one of the articles that we had written before in English. And I think that was a big aha moment for us, because it means that, number one, there's definitely a need. Number two, there's probably more people like her who'd be willing to support this mission. And so we started crafting this Spanish translator. Click. of women coming in and helping us translate our articles. It's funny because my co-founder, Denise, it's her mom who's been like editing a lot of the work. So we just are keeping it within the vibe. But it's been great to have that inclusive, geographically inclusive part of our content, which is really lacking in the space. And it's not only Spanish. Like Spanish is just what we know, and it was easier for us to attach. But the other day we had a Portuguese girl coming in requesting content in Portuguese. And so there's definitely a big need to keep widening the crypto conversation to different languages.
Awesome. I love that. To take us out, just to ask, I think, a pretty simple question. Why Surge for the name?
Yeah. So the idea is that Surge is a big wave of a big force coming into a space, right? When you think of something surging, it's like you're grabbing a whole bunch of energy, putting it together and rising. And so that's really what we want to be doing with women within the crypto space. It's like, how can we grab people at whatever their level is and just surge together as we're building this Web3 revolution.
I love that. So for the audience, where can they find you online? How can they be a part of that surge going forward? Surgewomen.io is our website. From there, I'd recommend either following us on Twitter or also just joining our Discord. Discord is our big community hub. It's where conversations are, things are happening, where you can hop in and contribute and hang out, ask your questions, answer questions. So that's the best hub, I'd say, to be. But if you just want to be on the sidelines for a bit and observe how we're working, definitely Twitter is what we keep most updated, as well as Instagram, and then our website, surgewomen.io. Awesome. Mucho gusto, Juliet. And thank you, Loni, for coming today. Really enjoyed this conversation and looking forward to seeing all the awesome stuff that you and the other women in Surge are accomplishing.
Thank you, Jackson. Great meeting you too, and keeping up with the amazing work that Kevin is also doing.
For sure. Thanks for having us. It's been fun.
Gracias.
Gracias a usted.